Thursday night. And you know what that means. Got a little bit of food in my system. Let the film marinate. And then here we are, live and direct with our review of The Flash. Now this movie has been a decade in the making. Like it was originally announced in 2014 when the Snyderverse and the DCU was still a thing. And the only thing that we have is, for the longest was that Ezra Miller was always attached to the movie. But here we are, finally. The Flash is here. And essentially, once again, we are adapting the Flashpoint story. But before we get into that, it's directed by Andy Muschietti, who directed it, right? And we've had so many directors and writers attached to this film that there's a part of us that didn't think it would get made, and it finally got made. So, Flashpoint. Flashpoint is a relatively new storyline in terms of comic books. It's got to be 20 years old at this point, maybe a little bit longer. Where Barry Allen, my favorite Flash, goes back in time and stops his mother from being murdered. And essentially, that creates a whole different universe. DC and their comics use it as kind of a rebirth. That's also another event that DC Comics has. A rebrand, a reboot, there we go, of their series. And what we come to learn is that Nora, Barry's mom, has to die. She's got to die. It's a fixed point. Like Bruce's parents have to die. So if you've seen Across the Spider-Verse, Uncle Ben's got to die. So we have Flashpoint. We have Ezra Miller. And there was a strong chance that this movie wasn't going to get made, and then it got made. And then when it finally about to come out, Ezra Miller, if you heard, you know the news, has his mental breakdown, and some really bad stuff comes out about it, right? I understand if you you'll let the Ezra Miller situation detract you from the film. I get it. I'm not going to fault you for it. But this is a solid movie. It's not terrible at all. It's not bad, because I've seen much worse. And I left overjoyed, since we're using this as a reboot, and now that James Gunn is in charge, this is kind of the jumping off point. But let's get to the movie. So let's start with the cons. The CGI is good, not great. Could be so much better, but I'm not going to fault the studios, because we know the CGI workers are really overworked, and there are parts where it just doesn't look great, and other times it looks fine. I just wish it was a little bit better. Barry's suit is also completely CGI in parts, and it's a little shaky sometimes. He's got that floating neck thing where it looks like his head isn't on his body. And that's what you get when you have a CGI suit. It's a little long in the tooth, and it banks heavily on Michael Keaton. The action's a little absurd, but it's the Flash, I can kind of forgive it. But to the pros, it's a really nice story. A slight con is that it tries too much to be a comedy when it really should be a dramedy. And I think because of the Flash TV show, which just ended, they've started making Barry younger in like the live action. I'm not with that. Barry has always been this, around the same age as, Bruce and Hal and Oliver. They run in the same circles, whereas Wally is the younger. They're essentially have been writing Barry as Wally West. But Ezra Miller does a really, really good job as Barry, and he gives this really earnest performance, and he hasn't gotten over his mother's murder, which also caused him to lose his father because his father was framed for the murder, and he misses that, and I get it. There's a scene in the movie, near the end of the movie, where Barry's with his mother. I was sitting between two women. They were both crying, and I get why, because it will definitely touch you in your heartstrings. You know what I mean? So the story is fine. The story is serviceable. It's nothing crazy, and like I said, Ezra Miller does a great job. Michael Keaton, boy, he does his thing. Clearly, that's not how he does it action sequences, but they banked heavily on Michael Keaton, and it worked. It really, really worked. He plays a nice, sizable part, just like how Thomas Wayne did in the comic books. He helps them along. So if you came to see Michael Keaton, great. If you came to see Ben Affleck, also great. I'm saying it here, Ben Affleck is a great Batman. He's a great Batman, period. Period, end of discussion, period. Ben Affleck is a great, great Batman. And I wish we could have gotten more from him. That's what I really wish. Sasha Calle, newcomer. This is my first time ever seeing her. I want more of her as Supergirl. I want more Sasha Calle as Supergirl, and I'm hoping when James Gunn does the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow movie, it's Sasha, because she is just nice. She's earnest. She's strong. She's got that Kryptonian anger and Kryptonian rage, especially when she's fighting Zod. Man, I'm like, yo, that's Supergirl, and I love it, and I want more of her. The Easter eggs are fine. They're kind of hamstrung into one part, and I truly believe they could have fit in more Easter eggs, more other actors. They didn't even have to be CGI. But the movie is, in and of itself, is solid. It's funny. Tries a little bit too much to be funny, but it's still funny enough. And when it slows down, it gives you what you need. It gives you that little bit of oomph in the middle to, okay, we're taking a breather here. Let's move the plot along. Let's make you care about the characters. But overall, The Flash is good. It's solid. It's not world ending. It's not, world beating. Especially coming out, 2 weeks after Across the Spider-Verse. But it's better than a lot of comic book movies. I'll tell you that. And I really, really enjoyed it. And it's got me excited for the future of the PC. It's got me excited for what James Gunn is going to do. It really does. So I'm going to give The Flash a 7 out of 10. And I think that's a fairly good, solid rating. I saw it in the Dolby Theater downtown, and that sound was crackling. That's another really good thing about the movie. The sound is really, really good. It's got a really good soundtrack and helps distract you, take you away from some of the shoddy CGI. But The Flash is a solid movie. 7 out of 10. James Gunn, I am but your humble servant. I am ready for whatever you're going to give to us.